r/AITA stepsister used me as free babysitter, so I reported her. AITA for reporting my stepsister to CPS after she used me as her free babysitter. The pounding on my bedroom door started at 6:47 a.m. on a Tuesday. I know the exact time because I was staring at my alarm clock, praying I had 15 more minutes before I had to get up for school. Open up. I need you to watch the kids. My stepsister Megan's voice cut through the thin walls like nails on a chalkboard. I pulled my pillow over my head, hoping she'd take the hint and find literally anyone else to dump her responsibilities on. Fat chance. I know you're awake. Mom said you'd help. Of course she did. I dragged myself out of bed and cracked open the door to find Megan already dressed to the nines in a tight black dress and full makeup. Behind her stood my 4-year-old nephew Tyler, still in yesterday's clothes, and 2-year-old Emma, who was crying and had what looked like dried cereal stuck in her hair. I can't. I have school, then work after. Remember? That thing called education that normal people prioritize. Megan rolled her eyes and pushed past me into my room. This is an emergency. My friend's mom is in the hospital and she needs me to drive her there. Family helps family. I'd heard that phrase so many times it had lost all meaning. What about their dad? Jason's working a double shift. Come on, don't be selfish. It's just for a few hours. The last time Megan said, a few hours, I missed an entire day of school and my shift at the grocery store. The time before that, I had to cancel plans with my friends, again. I was starting to feel like a ghost in my own life, watching everyone else move forward while I stayed trapped in this endless cycle of last-minute babysitting. I have a chemistry test today that I can't miss, and if I don't show up to work, they'll fire me. I need that job for college applications. Oh please, you're only 17. What do you need money for anyway? She was already heading back toward the door. The kids love spending time with their aunt. Don't make this harder than it needs to be. I'm not their aunt, I'm their stepsister, and that doesn't make me responsible for. But she was gone. Just like that. The sound of her car starting up in the driveway felt like a death sentence. Tyler tugged on my pajama pants. I'm hungry. Emma needs her diaper changed. I looked down at these two little kids who had absolutely no choice in this situation, just like me. The difference was, I was old enough to know how screwed up this whole arrangement was. I texted my mom, Megan dumped the kids on me again. I have school and work today. Her response came back in less than 30 seconds, just help out this once. She's going through a hard time. This once. Right. This was the 14th time in 2 months that I'd counted. 14 times I'd been expected to drop everything because Megan couldn't be bothered to arrange actual childcare or, God forbid, stay home with her own children. I stared at my phone, then at Tyler and Emma, then at my backpack sitting by the door, packed and ready for a day that was rapidly slipping away from me. Something inside me finally snapped. I wasn't doing this anymore. But first, I had 2 hungry kids to feed and a very long day ahead of me. I called in sick to school and texted my manager that I had a family emergency. Both lies felt bitter in my mouth, but what choice did I have? Leave 2 toddlers alone while I went about my day. By noon, I was questioning my sanity. Emma had thrown up twice, apparently Megan had given her nothing but juice boxes for breakfast, and Tyler kept asking when his mom was coming home. I'd burned through my entire grocery store paycheck buying diapers and actual food for these kids over the past month. Soon, I lied, bouncing Emma on my hip while trying to get Tyler to eat something that wasn't candy. My phone buzzed with texts from friends asking where I was, if I was okay. I couldn't even explain anymore. How do you tell people that your 23-year-old stepsister treats you like live-in help? That your parents think this is normal? Around 2 p.m., I decided to call Megan. Straight to voicemail. I tried again at 4 p.m. Still nothing. By 6 p.m., I was furious. I called my mom at work. She said it was an emergency about her friend's mom being in the hospital, I said, trying to keep my voice level while Emma screamed in the background. Well, hospital visits can take all day, honey. You know how these things go. Mom, I missed school and work. Again. This can't keep happening. Look, I'm in the middle of something. We'll talk when I get home, okay? Just order pizza or something. She hung up. I stared at my phone, wondering when I'd become so insignificant to my own mother. At 8 p.m., Tyler started crying because he wanted his mom to read him bedtime stories. I'd managed to give both kids baths and find some of Emma's clean clothes in a diaper bag, but I had no idea about bedtime routines or whether Emma still needed a bottle or if Tyler was supposed to take any medicine. That's when I heard it, music and laughter coming from outside. I looked out the window and saw Megan stumbling up the driveway in her black dress, hanging all over some guy I'd never seen before. They were clearly drunk. The hospital emergency apparently involved a lot of alcohol and a stranger. I watched them make out against his car for 5 full minutes while her children cried for her inside. Something cold and hard settled in my chest. When she finally came through the door, giggling and reeking of alcohol, I was waiting. How's your friend's mom? I asked. Megan blinked, clearly trying to remember her own lie. Oh, she's fine. Surgery went well. Funny, because you smell like a brewery and there's a guy's phone number written on your hand in pen. Her face flushed. I stopped for one drink afterward to decompress. It was really stressful. Mommy. Tyler launched himself at her legs. Hey buddy, she slurred, barely keeping her balance. Did you have fun with her? She couldn't even use my name. Tyler, why don't you go pick out a book? I said. Your mom needs some water. After I got both kids settled and Megan had sobered up enough to function, I cornered her in the kitchen. This has to stop. I'm not your free babysitter. God, you're so dramatic. I pay you sometimes. $20 twice doesn't cover 14 instances of all-day childcare. Look, I didn't ask to be a single mom. Sometimes I need help. Then hire an actual babysitter. Or ask your friends. Or I don't know, maybe don't go out so much. Her eyes narrowed. You're just a selfish teenager. When you have kids someday, you'll understand. That night, after she'd taken the kids home, I made a decision that would change everything. I started documenting. Every lie, every manipulation, every emergency that turned out to be a party, I started writing it all down. I created a folder on my phone with photos of the kids showing up in dirty clothes, screenshots of my conversations with Megan, even recordings of her slurred explanations when she'd stumble back home hours late. It felt weird at first, like I was building a case against my own family. But after 3 more weeks of the same routine, I realized that's exactly what I was doing. The breaking point came on a Thursday night. I was finally catching up on chemistry homework when Megan called at 11 p.m., crying hysterically. "I need you to come get the kids right now. Jason and I got in a huge fight and he threw us out. We're sitting in a McDonald's parking lot and Emma's running a fever." My heart dropped. This sounded serious, actually serious, not fake emergency serious. I threw on clothes and drove to the McDonald's, where I found Tyler asleep in a booth and Emma burning up with fever in Megan's arms. "What happened?" I asked, genuinely concerned. Through tears, Megan explained that Jason had come home early from work and found evidence she'd been seeing someone else. He'd kicked her out and told her not to come back. "We have nowhere to go," she sobbed. "Can we stay with you guys tonight? Just until I figure something out." I couldn't say no. Not with sick Emma whimpering and Tyler looking scared and confused. We loaded them into my car and headed home. But here's the thing about Megan, she couldn't go 5 minutes without making everything worse. While I was giving Emma medicine and trying to get her fever down, I heard Megan on the phone in the next room. "Yeah, babe, I'm stuck at my family's place tonight." "No, I know, it sucks. Maybe we can meet up tomorrow if I can find someone to watch the kids." She was already planning her next date while her daughter was sick and they were literally homeless. I took a photo of Emma's thermometer reading, 103.2 degrees, and added it to my growing file. Then I listened to Megan laugh and flirt on the phone for 20 more minutes while I held her feverish 2-year-old. The next morning, instead of looking for a new place to live or dealing with the Jason situation, Megan announced she was going out to clear her head. "I need some space to process everything that happened. You don't mind watching them today, right?" Emma seems better. Emma did not seem better. She was listless and barely eating, and Tyler kept asking why Daddy was mad at them. "Megan, Emma needs to see a doctor. And you need to figure out your living situation. Stop being such a control freak. Kids get fevers all the time. And I told you, I need space to think." She left in a cloud of perfume and empty promises to be back soon. Emma's fever spiked again around noon. I called Megan 6 times, straight to voicemail. I tried my mom at work, but she was in meetings all day. Finally, I made the decision to take Emma to urgent care myself. The doctor was concerned enough to run tests. Ear infection, borderline severe dehydration, and signs that she'd been running this fever for days without proper treatment. "Who's the primary caregiver?" the doctor asked while writing prescriptions. I hesitated. "Her mom. But she's dealing with some personal issues right now." The doctor's expression shifted slightly. "Is there a pattern of medical neglect?" The question hit me like a brick. Was there? I thought about all the times I dealt with Tyler's scraped knees because Megan was out. The diaper rashes that lasted for days. Emma's constant runny nose that never seemed to get treated. "I don't know," I answered honestly. But as I sat in that waiting room, holding someone else's sick child while her mother was God knows where doing God knows what, I realized I was about to find out exactly what medical neglect looked like. And my documentation was about to become a lot more serious. The urgent care bill was $347. I paid it with my grocery store savings because Emma needed antibiotics and I couldn't reach anyone else. When I asked the receptionist about insurance, she just looked at me sympathetically and said they'd need the mother to call and sort it out. Megan finally answered her phone at 7 p.m. "Oh my God, you took her to the doctor without asking me," she shrieked through the speaker. "What if they think I'm a bad mother?" Emma had a 103 fever and was dehydrated. The doctor said she could have gotten really sick. "You're so overdramatic. Kids bounce back from everything. Where are you now?" "Home." Tyler fell asleep watching cartoons and Emma finally ate some soup. I didn't mention that I'd had to buy the soup, the children's Tylenol, and dinner for all of us with money I'd been saving for my car insurance. "Good. I'm staying at my friend Jess's place tonight. We're having a girls' night to help me process the breakup. Megan, you can't just. I'll pick them up tomorrow afternoon. You're the best." She hung up before I could tell her about the antibiotics Emma needed every 6 hours or that Tyler had been asking for her all day. I stared at my phone, then at the medical paperwork spread across my desk. The doctor's notes were clinical but damning. Patient presented with untreated bilateral ear infection, fever 103.2 F, mild dehydration. Caregiver reports mother unavailable. Recommend follow-up in 48 hours. I added the receipt and discharge papers to my folder. It was getting thick. The next morning, Tyler woke up crying. Not the normal toddler crying, the deep, heartbroken sobs of a 4-year-old who doesn't understand why his world keeps falling apart. "I want mommy," he kept repeating. "Why doesn't mommy want to come home?" What was I supposed to tell him? That his mom was probably hungover at some stranger's apartment while he ate cereal for breakfast in clothes he'd been wearing for 3 days. I called in sick to school again. That made 4 times in 2 weeks. My chemistry teacher, Mr. Rodriguez, had started asking if everything was okay at home. I didn't know how to answer that question anymore. Around noon, Emma's fever came back. The antibiotic was supposed to help by now, but she was lethargic and barely drinking her bottle. I called the urgent care clinic. "Bring her back in if the fever goes over 102 or if she shows any signs of worsening," the nurse said. "Is the mother available to discuss her medical history?" "She's not available right now." "I see. Well, make sure she gets the full course of antibiotics. Missing doses can make the infection worse." I looked at Emma lying listlessly on the couch and felt something crack inside my chest. This wasn't fair to her. It wasn't fair to Tyler. And it sure as hell wasn't fair to me. I was 17 years old. I should have been worried about prom dress shopping and college applications, not whether a toddler's fever was dangerous or how to explain to a 4-year-old why his mother kept disappearing. At 3 p.m., I made a decision that scared me. I called the urgent care clinic back and asked to speak to someone about reporting suspected child neglect. Can you hold, please? Those 30 seconds on hold felt like the longest of my life. I was about to cross a line that would change everything. Once I made this call, there would be no going back. My family would never forgive me. But looking at Tyler coloring quietly in the corner, trying so hard to be good, and Emma struggling with a fever that could have been prevented if someone, anyone, had been paying attention to these kids' basic needs, I realized I'd already made my choice weeks ago. I just hadn't been brave enough to admit it yet. This is Sarah from Child Protective Services. I understand you have some concerns you'd like to discuss. My hands were shaking as I gripped the phone. Yes, I whispered. I think I need to report a case of child neglect. The words hung in the air like smoke after a fire, heavy and impossible to take back. Can you tell me about the situation? Sarah's voice was gentle but professional, the kind of tone that probably came from years of these calls. I looked at Tyler, who was now building a fort out of couch cushions while Emma dozed fitfully beside him, and suddenly felt like I was betraying everyone I was supposed to love. Maybe I should think about this more, I stammered. I mean, it's probably not as bad as I'm making it sound. Why don't you just tell me what's been happening? No commitment to anything right now, just talking. So I talked. I told her about the 14 documented instances of abandonment, the emergencies that turned out to be dates, the sick child whose mother couldn't be reached. I found myself reading directly from my notes, my voice growing steadier with each concrete example. And you're 17? Sarah asked when I finished. You're not a legal guardian or family member. It's complicated. She's my stepsister, but we're not related by blood. Her kids call me aunt sometimes, but legally I'm nothing to them. I see. And where are the children now? With me. Megan said she'd pick them up this afternoon, but... I glanced at the clock. It was almost 4 p.m. She's not answering her phone. There was a pause. I'm going to need to ask you some specific questions. Are you comfortable with that? My mouth went dry. Okay. In the past month, how many nights have these children slept somewhere other than their primary residence due to their mother's absence? I flipped through my notes. The number was worse than I'd realized. 11 nights. Have you ever seen evidence of physical abuse? No, nothing like that. Megan loves them, she just... I struggled to find the right words. She acts like being their mom is something that happens when it's convenient. Have the children ever been left without adequate supervision for their ages? My stomach twisted. Define adequate. Has a 4-year-old ever been left to supervise a 2-year-old without adult oversight? I closed my eyes, remembering the time I'd come home from work to find Tyler trying to make Emma a bottle because Megan had stepped out for just a few minutes and been gone for 3 hours. Yes. Sarah's tone shifted slightly. I want you to understand that making a formal report starts a process that can't be undone. CPS will need to investigate, which means interviews with the children, the mother, and you. Your family will know the report came from you. What if I'm wrong? What if I'm just being dramatic like everyone says? From what you've described, a trained social worker needs to evaluate this situation. That's not your job to figure out alone. The front door slammed open, making both Tyler and me jump. Megan stood in the doorway, and she looked terrible, yesterday's makeup smeared, hair a mess, still wearing the same clothes from 2 days ago. I need to go, I whispered into the phone. Wait, Sarah started, but I'd already hung up. Mommy. Tyler launched himself at Megan, who caught him but winced like he weighed 1,000 pounds. Hey baby, she mumbled, then looked at me with bloodshot eyes. Thanks for watching them. I just need to grab some stuff and we'll get out of your hair. Megan, Emma's been sick. She needs her antibiotic every 6 hours, and the doctor wants to see her again tomorrow if she's not better. Megan wasn't listening. She was gathering up toys and shoving them into a garbage bag. Where's Emma's jacket? She doesn't have one here. Are you okay to drive? You look. I'm fine. Come on, kids, let's go home. Where's home? I asked quietly. Megan paused, a stuffed animal halfway into the bag. We're staying with a friend. Which friend? What if there's an emergency with Emma's fever? God, you worry too much. She's fine. Megan scooped up Emma, who whimpered and felt burning hot against my hand when I touched her forehead. I watched them leave, Tyler clutching his little backpack, Emma limp in her mother's arms, Megan fumbling with car keys and swaying slightly on her feet. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. This is Sarah from CPS. Please call me back when you can. 555-0147". I stared at that message as Megan's car disappeared down the street, Emma's fever-bright face pressed against the window. Tomorrow, I would have to decide whether to make the call that would tear my family apart. Tonight, I just prayed those kids would be safe until morning. The next morning, I woke up to 17 missed calls from my mom. My heart immediately went into panic mode as I called her back, my mind racing through every terrible possibility. Where have you been? I've been trying to reach you since midnight. Mom's voice was sharp with anxiety. I was asleep. What's wrong? Megan called me from the emergency room. Emma had some kind of seizure from her fever and they had to rush her to the hospital. Why didn't you tell me she was that sick? The blood drained from my face. I told Megan yesterday that Emma needed to be monitored, that the doctor wanted to see her again if she didn't improve. Did you know Megan looked drunk when she picked them up? She was not drunk. She was exhausted from everything she's been dealing with. And now my granddaughter is in the hospital and Megan is beside herself. I sat up in bed, my hands shaking. Is Emma okay? She's stable, but they're keeping her overnight. Her fever spiked to 105 and she became unresponsive. Megan said you took her to some clinic without permission and they gave her the wrong medication. That's not, Mom, that's completely backwards. Emma was dehydrated and had a severe ear infection that had been untreated for days. The antibiotics were supposed to help her. Well, clearly something went wrong because now she's in intensive care. The guilt hit me like a physical blow. What if I had missed something? What if I should have taken her back to the doctor sooner? What if my decision to let Megan take the kids had put Emma in danger? Which hospital? I asked, already getting dressed. St. Mary's. But honey, maybe it's better if you don't come right now. Megan is really upset and she's saying some things about how you've been interfering with her parenting. Interfering? I've been doing all the parenting while she goes out drinking. That's enough. Mom's voice went cold. This is exactly the kind of attitude that's making everything worse. Megan is going through the hardest time of her life, and instead of supporting her, you're making accusations. I hung up and immediately called Sarah's number. I need to make that report, I said the moment she answered. A 2-year-old is in the ICU and everyone is blaming me for trying to help her. Slow down. Tell me what happened. I explained about Emma's fever, Megan's condition when she picked up the kids, and the seizure. Sarah listened without interrupting, occasionally asking for clarification. I have documentation of everything, I added. Photos, texts, medical records. But what if this is somehow my fault? What if I should have done something different? A child doesn't end up in intensive care from receiving appropriate medical attention, Sarah said firmly. Febrile seizures in toddlers are usually the result of rapidly rising temperatures that haven't been properly managed. You may have prevented a much worse outcome by getting her initial treatment. My family doesn't see it that way. That's unfortunately common in these situations. Family members often blame the person who seeks help rather than addressing the underlying problem. Are you prepared for that reaction to get worse? I thought about my mom's cold voice, about Megan probably telling everyone at the hospital that this was my fault somehow. I don't think I have a choice anymore. If I don't report this and something worse happens to Emma or Tyler. I understand. I can start the paperwork today, but I want you to know that once we begin an investigation, your family dynamics are going to change significantly. CPS involvement isn't something that quietly goes away. After I gave Sarah all the necessary information and sent her my documentation, I drove to the hospital. I found Megan in the pediatric ICU waiting room, looking genuinely terrified for the first time since I'd known her. How is she? I asked quietly. Megan looked up, and her expression immediately hardened. Oh, so now you care. After you poisoned her with whatever medication you decided she needed. Megan, that's not what happened. The doctor prescribed. Don't. She stood up, her voice rising. Just don't. Tyler keeps asking why Emma is sick and I don't know what to tell him because his aunt decided to play doctor instead of calling me. Several other families in the waiting room were staring now. I lowered my voice. I called you 6 times. You didn't answer. Emma was burning up and I was scared. You should have tried harder to reach me. You should have brought her to me first. You don't get to make medical decisions for my children. The irony was almost breathtaking. For months, I'd been making every decision about her children while she disappeared, and now that one of them was seriously ill, suddenly she wanted to be the responsible parent. Where's Tyler? I asked. With my friend Jess. At least someone I trust is watching him. The word stung, but before I could respond, a doctor in scrubs approached us. Miss Chen, he addressed Megan. Emma's fever has come down and she's responding well. We'd like to keep her one more night for observation, but she should be able to go home tomorrow. The relief on Megan's face was genuine, and for a moment I remembered why I'd been trying to help her in the first place. Despite everything, she did love her kids. Can I see her? Megan asked. Of course. She's been asking for mommy. The doctor paused, looking between us. Are you family as well? He asked me. Before I could answer, Megan stepped forward. She's nobody. Just someone who's been interfering where she doesn't belong. The words hit harder than I expected. After months of being the person who fed her children, who took them to doctors, who held them when they cried for her, I was nobody. I watched Megan disappear into Emma's room, and my phone buzzed with a text from Sarah, report filed. Investigation will begin within 48 hours. Stay strong. I sat in that hospital waiting room for another hour, hoping Megan might let me see Emma, might acknowledge that I'd been trying to help. But when she finally came back out, she walked right past me like I was invisible. Tomorrow, a social worker would start asking questions about Megan's parenting. Soon, everyone would know I was the one who called. I just hoped Emma and Tyler would be safer because of it, even if it meant losing the only family I had left. The investigation started faster than I expected. Sarah called me at school on Monday, just 3 days after I'd filed the report. We need to schedule an interview with you this week, she said. Can you come to our office Thursday after school? Has anyone talked to Megan yet? I asked, ducking into an empty classroom so no one could overhear. I can't discuss details of our investigation with you, but I will say that Miss Chen has been notified that a report was filed. My stomach dropped. Does she know it was me? Reports can come from many sources, teachers, doctors, neighbors, family members. We don't typically reveal who made the initial call. But I knew Megan would figure it out. I was the only person who had been consistently involved with the kids, who knew all the details I'd reported. It was only a matter of time. That afternoon, I got my answer. I was walking to my car after work when I spotted Megan's Honda parked across the street from the grocery store. She was sitting behind the wheel, just watching. When our eyes met, she slowly raised her middle finger. My hands were shaking as I got in my car. She followed me for 6 blocks before turning off, but the message was clear, she knew, and she was pissed. At home, Mom was waiting in the kitchen with her arms crossed and that expression she got when she was disappointed beyond words. We need to talk. I set down my backpack, trying to appear calmer than I felt. Okay. Megan got a visit from Child Protective Services today. They asked her a lot of very specific questions about her childcare arrangements and mentioned several incidents that sound remarkably similar to things you complained about. There was no point in denying it. Emma had a seizure, Mom. She ended up in intensive care because she got sick. Kids get sick. That doesn't mean you call the government on your own family. She's not my family, I said quietly. You married her dad 2 years ago. Before that, I'd never even met her. She's your stepsister, and those children are your stepniece and nephew. We're supposed to support each other. I did support them. I supported them for months while Megan went out partying. I fed them, bathed them, took them to doctors, bought them clothes with my own money. But apparently that was interfering. Mom's expression softened slightly. Honey, I know you've helped out a lot, and we appreciate it. But calling CPS. That's going to follow those kids forever. Do you know what happens to families when they get involved with social services? Do you know what happens to kids when nobody advocates for them? Megan loves her children. Loving them isn't enough. Tyler asked me last week why mommy doesn't want to come home. Emma had an untreated ear infection for days because Megan was too busy with her new boyfriend to notice her daughter was in pain. You don't understand what it's like to be a young single mother. And you don't understand what it's like to be 17 and constantly responsible for someone else's kids while my own life falls apart. We stared at each other across the kitchen table, and I could see the exact moment when she decided I was the problem in this situation. The social worker wants to interview you, she said finally. And apparently they want to talk to me and David too. About our household dynamics and how we've been handling the childcare situation. The way she said it made it sound like I'd invited strangers to judge our entire family. Which, I guess, I had. If you tell them anything that makes Megan look worse than she already does. Mom shook her head. I don't know how we come back from this. What if I tell them the truth? The truth is that a young mother needed help and her family stepped up. That's what you tell them. But as I went upstairs to my room, I couldn't stop thinking about Tyler's tears and Emma's burning fever and Megan's slurred voice on all those late-night phone calls. The truth was a lot more complicated than that. The interview with Sarah took place in a sterile conference room that smelled like disinfectant and stale coffee. She had another social worker with her, a middle-aged man named David who took notes while Sarah asked questions. Tell us about the most recent incident that concerned you, Sarah began, her voice gentle but professional. I pulled out my phone and scrolled to the photos from that Thursday night. Emma's fever was 103.2 when I took her temperature. Megan had left around 11 p.m., claiming there was an emergency, but when she came back she was drunk and had some guy's number written on her hand. David looked up from his notepad. You documented this? I have photos of the thermometer reading, screenshots of the texts where Megan lied about the emergency, and a recording of her slurred speech when she came home. I hesitated. Is that legal? The recording? In this state, you only need one-party consent for recordings, Sarah said. What else happened that night? I walked them through everything, Emma's deteriorating condition, Megan's inability to function when she got home, the urgent care visit I'd paid for myself. As I talked, I watched their expressions grow more serious. How much of your own money have you spent on these children? David asked. I'd been dreading this question. Around $800 over the past 2 months. Diapers, food, medical copays, clothes when they showed up in dirty outfits. I pulled up my bank statement on my phone. I've been keeping track. Sarah and David exchanged a look. That's a significant financial burden for a teenager. Did the children's mother ever reimburse you? She gave me $20 twice. Said I should be grateful for the experience. The questions continued for over an hour. They wanted details about Tyler and Emma's physical condition, their behavior, whether I'd ever seen signs of physical abuse. They asked about my parents' involvement, about Megan's living situation, about the children's father. Jason, their dad, he tries, but he works long shifts and Megan tells him I love babysitting. He thinks it's just family helping family. Have you ever expressed concerns to other adults? Sarah asked. I tried talking to my mom and stepdad, but they always said Megan was going through a hard time and I needed to be more understanding. My mom called me selfish when I complained about missing school. David leaned forward. You mentioned missing school multiple times. How has this affected your academic performance? My throat tightened. I've missed 14 days this semester. My chemistry grade dropped from an A to a C, and I had to quit the debate team because I couldn't make practices. My college applications. I trailed off, realizing how much I'd given up. What about your job? Sarah prompted. I've called in sick 6 times. My manager pulled me aside last week and said if it happens again, they'll have to let me go. I need that job for college savings. After they finished with their questions, Sarah walked me to the parking lot. I want you to know that speaking up took courage, she said. It's never easy to report family members, even when you know it's the right thing to do. My mom says this will follow the kids forever. That I've ruined their lives. Sarah was quiet for a moment. What follows children forever is trauma from neglect and instability. What we're trying to do is give them a chance at consistency and proper care. That evening, I came home to find my stepdad David waiting in the living room with a grim expression. Sit down, he said. We need to have a serious conversation about what happens next. I sat down across from my stepdad, my heart already racing. David had always been the calmer parent in our household, the one who mediated between mom and me when we fought. But tonight, his face was stone-cold serious. Megan's lawyer called me today, he said without preamble. Her lawyer. I felt like the air had been sucked out of the room. Apparently, she's considering filing harassment charges against you. Claims you've been stalking her, taking unauthorized photos of her children, and making false reports to government agencies. My mouth went dry. That's not. I was documenting neglect, not stalking. And the reports aren't false. Her lawyer seems to think otherwise. He's also suggesting that your obsession with her children constitutes some kind of psychological disturbance. David rubbed his temples. This is escalating way beyond what any of us expected. What does mom think about this? Your mother is terrified. CPS called her at work today and scheduled an interview for tomorrow. Her boss pulled her into his office because a social worker contacted them asking about her work schedule and whether she'd ever had to leave early for family emergencies involving grandchildren. The implications hit me like a truck. They're investigating mom's workplace. Why? Because when you file a CPS report, they don't just look at the parents. They examine the entire support system. Every adult who's been involved with those kids is now under scrutiny. His voice was getting harder. That includes me, your mother, even Jason's parents. I felt sick. I thought I was reporting Megan's neglect, but apparently I'd opened an investigation into our entire family. The social worker asked your mother some very pointed questions about why a 17-year-old has been functioning as the primary caregiver for children who aren't her legal responsibility. They wanted to know if we've been enabling the situation or failing in our duty to protect both you and Tyler and Emma. What did Mom tell them? The truth. That we thought Megan just needed some help adjusting to single motherhood, and that you were being a good sister by pitching in. He leaned forward. But apparently, the social worker has records of every time you missed school, every time you called in sick to work. They have documentation going back months that you've been parentified. Parentified? It's a term for when children are forced to take on adult responsibilities inappropriately. The social worker suggested that we failed to protect you from being exploited. My head was spinning. Not only was I potentially in legal trouble for reporting Megan, but now my parents were being investigated for letting it happen in the first place. There's more, David continued. Megan's been staying with some guy named Brad for the past week. Yesterday, CPS showed up at his apartment for an unannounced home visit. Apparently, the living conditions were concerning. What kind of concerning? Drug paraphernalia visible, no childproofing, Tyler and Emma sleeping on a mattress on the floor while Megan and this Brad guy had the bedroom. The social worker documented that both children appeared unwashed and Tyler told her he was hungry because Mommy forgot to buy food again. Despite everything, my heart clenched for those kids. Are they okay? They're in emergency foster care as of this afternoon. The words hit me like a physical blow. I'd wanted Megan to take better care of Tyler and Emma, but I'd never imagined they'd be taken away from her completely. This is what you wanted, isn't it? David's voice was bitter now. You got what you were after. I never wanted them in foster care. I wanted Megan to step up and be their mother. Well, congratulations. Your report worked exactly like the system designed it to. Those kids are now in the care of strangers, Megan's parental rights are under review, and our family is destroyed. He stood up to leave, then turned back. Oh, and one more thing. Megan's planning to tell CPS that you've been inappropriate with Tyler. Something about boundary issues and concerning attachment behavior. The accusation was so far beyond anything I'd expected that I couldn't even process it at first. That's insane. I've never. I know that. Your mother knows that. But mud sticks, and Megan's desperate. His expression softened slightly. I hope saving those kids was worth destroying yourself in the process. After David left me sitting in the living room with my world crashing down around me, I couldn't think straight. The accusation Megan was planning to make against me kept echoing in my head. How could she even suggest something so horrible? I'd spent months taking care of Tyler and Emma like they were my own family. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. This is what happens when you mess with someone's family. Hope you're happy. Then another, those kids are crying for their mom tonight because of you. And another, Brad says hi. He knows where you work. I turned my phone off and went upstairs, but sleep was impossible. Every creak of the house made me jump, and I kept thinking about that guy Brad knowing where I worked. What if Megan had told him my schedule? What if this was about to get even worse? The next morning at school, I felt like everyone was staring at me. It was probably paranoia, but when I overheard two girls whispering about that junior whose family is all over social media, I realized the story was spreading. During lunch, my friend Maya cornered me by my locker. Is it true your stepsister is posting about you on Facebook? Jess showed me some pretty intense stuff. My stomach dropped. What kind of stuff? Maya pulled out her phone and showed me Megan's Facebook page. There were 3 long posts from last night, each more dramatic than the last. She'd written about her psychotic stepsister, who had stolen her children through false accusations and manipulation of the system. The posts had dozens of comments from people I'd never heard of, calling me everything from a family destroyer to much worse things I couldn't repeat. But the worst part was the photos. Megan had posted pictures of Tyler and Emma with captions like, "Miss my babies who were taken from me by lies," and "When your own family betrays you." She'd made it look like I'd maliciously torn innocent children away from a loving mother. Maya, that's not what happened, I started, but she was already backing away. Look, I don't know what's going on with your family, but this is pretty heavy stuff. Maybe we should talk when things calm down. I watched my friend walk away and realized this was just the beginning. Megan wasn't just fighting me through the legal system, she was destroying my reputation publicly. During chemistry class, Mr. Rodriguez asked me to stay after the bell. "I've been concerned about your attendance lately," he said, pulling up my records on his computer. "You've missed more classes this semester than the previous 3 years combined. Is everything all right at home?" I stared at the screen showing all my absences, each one representing a day I'd spent caring for Tyler and Emma while Megan disappeared. How could I explain that I'd been functioning as a parent while my actual education suffered? "It's complicated," I managed. "I also received an interesting phone call yesterday from someone claiming to be your stepsister. She suggested that you've been struggling with some kind of mental health crisis and that's why your performance has declined." The room felt like it was spinning. Megan was now actively sabotaging my academic standing. "Mr. Rodriguez, I can explain. I told her that I don't discuss students' records with family members who aren't legal guardians. But I am concerned about you. These patterns of absence, combined with what I've observed about your stress levels lately." He paused. "Have you considered speaking with the school counselor?" I realized that everyone was going to assume I was the problem. The girl who'd missed too much school, who seemed stressed and overwhelmed, whose family situation was messy and dramatic. Meanwhile, Megan would play the victimized young mother whose children were stolen by a disturbed teenager. My phone vibrated with another text from Sarah, "Emergency hearing scheduled for Monday. You'll need to testify. Are you prepared for this?" As I walked to my car after school, I spotted the same Honda from yesterday parked across the street again. This time, there were 2 people inside, Megan and a guy I assumed was Brad. They were watching me, and Brad was taking pictures. I ducked behind another car in the parking lot and called Sarah immediately. They're photographing me, I whispered into the phone, watching Brad lean out the passenger window with what looked like a professional camera. Megan and some guy are sitting outside my school taking pictures of me. Where are you right now? Sarah's voice was sharp with concern. Hiding behind a car in the student parking lot. They followed me yesterday too. Listen carefully. Do not approach them or engage with them in any way. Can you get safely to your car? I peered around the bumper. Brad was now standing outside the Honda, openly filming me with his phone while Megan pointed in my direction. Several other students had noticed and were starting to stare and whisper. I don't think so. There are people watching now, and if I try to leave they'll probably follow me again. I'm calling the police. Stay on the line with me and go back inside the school building. As I hurried back toward the main entrance, I heard Brad yelling across the parking lot, hey. Family destroyer. How does it feel to rip kids away from their mother? Other students were pulling out their phones now, some filming the confrontation, others probably posting about it already. By tomorrow, this would be all over social media with me looking like I was running away from some kind of confrontation. Inside the building, I found Mr. Rodriguez still in his classroom. I need help, I said, probably sounding as panicked as I felt. There are people outside taking pictures of me and yelling things. He looked out the window and frowned. Is that related to the family situation your stepsister mentioned? She's trying to make me look crazy so CPS will think I made everything up. The words tumbled out before I could stop them. I reported her for neglecting her kids, and now she's trying to destroy my life. Mr. Rodriguez's expression shifted as pieces clicked into place. So the absences, the declining performance, you were taking care of children? 4 months. I missed school, lost sleep, spent my college savings, and now everyone thinks I'm some kind of obsessed psycho who stole her babies. Wait here. He left the classroom and returned 5 minutes later with Principal Harper and a police officer. The individuals outside have been asked to leave school property, Officer Martinez told me. But I understand there may be ongoing harassment. I showed him the threatening texts, the Facebook posts, yesterday's following incident. As he scrolled through the messages, his expression grew more serious. This constitutes stalking and harassment. I can file a report, but I need you to understand that escalating this legally might make things worse before they get better. How could they possibly get worse? Principal Harper cleared her throat. Your stepsister called the school district office this morning. She claimed you've been using school computers to research how to take children away from their parents and suggested you might be a threat to other students' families. The accusation was so absurd I almost laughed. That's completely insane. I know. We checked your computer usage and found nothing concerning. But she also contacted 3 local news stations with a story about teens weaponizing CPS against innocent families. Channel 7 called asking for comment about our troubled student. My legs felt weak. Megan wasn't just trying to discredit me with CPS, she was attempting to destroy my reputation publicly and permanently. There's something else, Officer Martinez said, consulting his notes. The man with her, Brad Morrison, has a record. 2 domestic violence charges and a drug possession conviction from last year. If he's been living with minor children. That's why CPS removed them, I realized. It wasn't just about Megan's neglect. Your report may have saved those kids from a dangerous situation, he confirmed. But right now, you need protection from retaliation. The protection order hearing was scheduled for Friday morning, which meant I had to miss more school. The irony wasn't lost on me, Megan's harassment was now causing the same academic disruption that caring for her kids had. I sat in another sterile government building, this time with a court-appointed victim's advocate named Jennifer who looked like she'd seen too many cases like mine. The good news is that Brad Morrison violated his parole by living with minor children, she explained, flipping through a thick file. He's back in custody as of yesterday. The bad news is that Megan's escalated her campaign against you. She showed me printouts of new social media posts. Megan had created a GoFundMe called Help a Mother Fight False Accusations that had already raised over $3,000. The description painted me as a troubled teen obsessed with destroying families, and included photos of Tyler and Emma with heartbreaking captions about being stolen from their loving mother. She's also started a Facebook group called Families Against CPS Abuse with almost 500 members, Jennifer continued. Your name and photo have been shared multiple times, along with your school information and workplace. My chest tightened. So random strangers know where to find me? We've notified your employer and school administration. But there's more. She pulled up something on her laptop. 3 different people have called CPS claiming they witnessed you acting inappropriately with children at various locations around town. Obviously fabricated reports, but they have to investigate each one. This is insane. I haven't even seen Tyler and Emma since they went into foster care. The strategy is to overwhelm the system with contradictory information until your original report gets lost in the chaos. It's actually more common than you'd think. Jennifer's phone buzzed and she checked it with a frown. Excuse me for a moment. While she stepped out to take a call, I stared at the photos of Tyler and Emma on the GoFundMe page. They looked happy in the pictures, smiling at some birthday party, playing at a park. None of the photos showed Tyler's tears when he asked why mommy didn't come home, or Emma burning with fever while her mother was unreachable. Megan was rewriting history in real time, and hundreds of strangers were donating money to support her version of events. Jennifer came back looking grim. That was your CPS worker. Megan's lawyer filed a motion claiming you fabricated evidence and demanding that all your documentation be thrown out as fruit of a poisonous tree. Can they do that? They can try. The argument is that since you're a minor with no legal standing, you had no right to collect evidence about the children's welfare. It's a long shot legally, but it could delay the case for months. My phone rang, Mom's number. I let it go to voicemail, then immediately played the message on speaker. Honey, please call me back. David's job is asking questions about our family stability because someone contacted them about the CPS investigation. He might lose his promotion because of this. I know you thought you were helping, but this has gotten completely out of control. Maybe we can all sit down and figure out how to fix this before it destroys everything we've worked for. Please just call me. Mom's voice cracked at the end, and guilt crashed over me like a wave. I'd been so focused on protecting Tyler and Emma that I hadn't fully considered how this would impact my parents' careers, their reputation, their future. Second thoughts are normal, Jennifer said gently. But remember why you made the report in the first place. Before I could respond, her phone buzzed again. This time, her expression shifted to something closer to alarm. What is it? I asked. Tyler and Emma's foster placement isn't working out. The family says Tyler has severe separation anxiety and Emma's having night terrors. They're asking for the children to be moved to a different home. The implications hit me immediately. Megan's going to blame me for traumatizing them. She already is. Her lawyer's arguing that removing the children from their mother's care has caused psychological damage that could have been avoided if CPS had ignored your malicious report. I felt trapped in a nightmare where every attempt to help these kids only seemed to make things worse for everyone involved. There's one more thing, Jennifer said quietly. The judge wants to interview you directly about your motivations for making the report. Megan's team is going to argue that you're an unstable teenager who inserted yourself into a family situation that didn't concern you. When? Monday morning. And I have to warn you, they're going to ask some very difficult questions about your relationship with those children and why you were so invested in their welfare. The accusation Megan was planning to make suddenly felt very real and very dangerous. The weekend before my court appearance was the longest of my life. I barely left my room, surviving on granola bars and bottled water while obsessively refreshing Megan's social media pages to see what new accusations she'd invented. Saturday morning, she posted a video of herself crying outside the foster care office. They won't even let me see my babies, she sobbed into the camera. All because a jealous teenager decided to play God with our family. Tyler keeps asking the social workers when he can come home, and I have to tell him I don't know. The comments section was brutal. Hundreds of strangers calling me every name imaginable, sharing their own horror stories about CPS, demanding that I be prosecuted for false reporting. Someone had figured out my Instagram handle and screenshot my photos, analyzing them for evidence of my supposed mental instability. Look how obsessed she is with those kids, one comment read under a photo of me pushing Emma on a swing last summer. Normal teenagers don't spend this much time with someone else's children. Creepy. Another person had taken a picture I'd posted of Tyler's drawing, a stick figure family he'd made during one of those long babysitting days, and twisted it into something sinister. She's been grooming these children to see her as their mother figure. This is psychological abuse. I deleted all my social media accounts, but the screenshots were already spreading faster than I could contain them. Sunday night, Mom knocked on my bedroom door around 11 p.m. I pretended to be asleep, but she came in anyway and sat on the edge of my bed. We need to talk about tomorrow, she said quietly. I rolled over to face her, noting how exhausted she looked. The past week had aged her years. David's company is requiring him to take a leave of absence pending the outcome of the CPS investigation, she continued. Something about maintaining professional integrity while there are questions about our family's situation. The guilt was suffocating. Mom, I'm sorry. I never meant for. I know you didn't. But intentions don't pay the mortgage. She sighed deeply. The lawyer we consulted said that if you recant your statement tomorrow, tell the judge you exaggerated because you were overwhelmed and didn't understand the consequences, there's a chance this all goes away quietly. Recant? Admit that maybe Megan wasn't as neglectful as you initially thought. That you were just a stressed teenager who misinterpreted normal single-parent struggles as abuse. The kids could go back to her, the investigation could be closed, and we could all move on. I stared at the ceiling, processing what she was asking me to do. What about Emma's hospitalization? Tyler's fear. The drug dealer Megan was living with. The Brad situation was addressed, he's in jail. And kids recover from illnesses and anxiety. But families don't always recover from this kind of destruction. So I should lie under oath to protect everyone except Tyler and Emma? Mom's voice hardened slightly. I'm asking you to consider that maybe a flawed mother is better than no mother at all. Those kids are traumatized right now, bouncing between foster homes, asking for their mommy. Is that really the outcome you wanted? After she left, I lay awake until dawn, staring at my phone and Jennifer's business card on my nightstand. I could call her right now, tell her I wanted to withdraw my statement, end this nightmare before it consumed everyone I loved. Instead, I found myself scrolling through my photo gallery, stopping at a video I'd taken 3 months ago. Tyler was trying to comfort Emma, who was crying because she'd fallen and scraped her knee. In the background, you could hear Megan on the phone, laughing with someone about her plans for that night, completely oblivious to her injured daughter. It's okay, Emma, 4-year-old Tyler said in the video, patting her head with the careful gentleness of a child who'd learned to be the adult. Aunt gonna fix it. Aunt always fixes everything. I closed my eyes, knowing that tomorrow I'd have to choose between saving my family and saving those kids. And I still didn't know which choice I could live with. The courtroom was smaller than I'd expected, but somehow that made it more intimidating. I sat between Jennifer and a court-appointed guardian ad litem who'd introduced herself as Mrs. Patterson, trying to keep my hands from shaking as Judge Morrison reviewed my file. Across the aisle, Megan sat with her lawyer, a sharp-dressed woman who kept shooting me looks like I was something she'd scrape off her shoe. Megan had dressed for the part perfectly, conservative blouse, minimal makeup, tissues clutched in her hands. She looked like a grieving mother, not someone who'd spent months dumping her kids on a teenager. Miss Chen, Judge Morrison began, and I realized he was talking to me. Before we proceed, I want to make sure you understand the gravity of this situation. Your report has resulted in 2 minor children being removed from their home and placed in state custody. Do you comprehend the significance of that? Yes, Your Honor. My voice came out smaller than I'd intended. Good. Now, I've reviewed the documentation you provided, and I have some questions about how you obtained this information. Specifically, the recordings and photographs. Megan's lawyer leaned forward slightly, and I felt a chill run down my spine. I was taking care of Tyler and Emma when these incidents happened, I explained. I started documenting things because nobody believed me when I tried to explain what was going on. But you're 17 years old with no legal authority over these children. Some might argue that secretly recording their mother constitutes a violation of privacy. Jennifer squeezed my hand under the table. We'd prepared for this. I was scared for them, Your Honor. Emma ended up in a hospital because her fever wasn't being managed properly. Tyler was trying to take care of his little sister because I stopped myself before saying what I really thought about Megan's priorities. Because what, Miss Chen? I looked across at Megan, who was dabbing at her eyes with a tissue. For a split second, our eyes met, and I saw something cold and calculating behind her tears. Because their mother wasn't there when they needed her. Megan's lawyer stood immediately. Objection, Your Honor. This witness is making inflammatory statements based on her teenage interpretation of normal parenting challenges. Sustained. Miss Chen, please stick to facts, not opinions. The questioning continued for what felt like hours. They wanted specific dates, times, exact quotes. Every detail of my documentation was scrutinized, questioned, twisted into something that could be interpreted as a vindictive teenager's vendetta. Then came the question I'd been dreading. Miss Chen, can you explain why you were so invested in these children's welfare? What motivated you to take such extensive action? The courtroom went silent. This was the moment where I could follow Mom's advice, paint myself as a confused, overwhelmed teenager who'd misunderstood the situation. One sentence could end this nightmare for everyone except Tyler and Emma. They didn't have anyone else, I said instead. Tyler would ask me why his mommy didn't want to come home. Emma would cry when she was sick, and nobody else seemed to notice or care. I couldn't just watch them suffer. But they weren't your responsibility, the judge pressed. Why didn't you simply refuse to babysit? Because they're innocent kids who didn't choose any of this. And because. I took a shaky breath. Because if I didn't take care of them, who would? Megan's lawyer pounced. Your Honor, this testimony reveals a concerning level of emotional attachment. My client has serious concerns about this teenager's fixation on her children and the inappropriate boundaries that developed during these babysitting arrangements. My blood turned to ice. She was really going to make that accusation in open court. Jennifer stood quickly. Your Honor, we object strenuously to any implication of impropriety. My client was fulfilling a caretaking role that was repeatedly forced upon her by the children's mother. Nevertheless, Megan's lawyer continued, we believe this court should examine whether Miss Chen's motivations were truly altruistic or stemmed from an unhealthy obsession with inserting herself into this family unit. The words hung in the air like poison. I watched several people in the gallery, relatives I barely recognized, whisper among themselves. Even Jennifer looked shaken. Judge Morrison consulted his notes, then looked directly at me. Miss Chen, I'm going to ask you a direct question, and I want you to think very carefully before answering. Is there anything about your relationship with these children that you haven't disclosed to this court? The question felt like a trap with no right answer. Say no, and they'd claim I was hiding something. Elaborate, and they'd twist whatever I said into evidence of inappropriate behavior. The only thing I haven't disclosed is how much I wish none of this had been necessary, I said finally. I wish Tyler and Emma had a mother who put them first. I wish I could have spent the past 6 months being a normal teenager instead of raising someone else's children. And I wish everyone in this courtroom cared half as much about those kids' safety as they do about protecting the adult who failed them. Megan burst into tears, loud, dramatic sobs that echoed through the courtroom. She's trying to steal my children, she wailed. I made mistakes, but I love them. Please don't let her destroy our family. The judge called for a recess, but the damage felt irreversible. As people filed out of the courtroom, I caught fragments of whispered conversations, seems obsessed. Not normal for a teenager. Poor mother. Jennifer gripped my arm as we walked toward the exit. That went better than I expected, she said, but her voice sounded strained. Really? Because I feel like I just painted a target on my back. You told the truth. That's all we can do. But as I watched Megan surrounded by supportive relatives outside the courthouse, I wondered if the truth would be enough to protect Tyler and Emma, or if I just destroyed myself for nothing. The judge's decision came 3 days later. I was sitting in chemistry class, trying to focus on molecular structures, when Principal Harper called me to the office. Jennifer was waiting with an expression I couldn't read. The judge ruled in favor of maintaining the children in protective custody, she said without preamble. But there's more. My heart hammered against my ribs. More what? The investigation expanded beyond just Megan. They discovered that Brad Morrison was dealing drugs out of the apartment where Tyler and Emma were staying. Your documentation helped establish a timeline that proved the children were exposed to dangerous criminal activity. I sank into the chair across from her. Are they okay? They're safe. And there's something else, the foster family that initially couldn't handle their behavioral issues. They've requested to keep Tyler and Emma permanently. Apparently, once the kids started therapy and felt secure, they began thriving. The relief was overwhelming, but Jennifer's expression told me there was still bad news coming. Megan's been charged with child endangerment and filing false reports. Her lawyer tried to negotiate a plea deal, but the evidence was too substantial. Jennifer pulled out her phone and showed me a news article. Local woman charged after children found in drug house. The story laid out everything, Brad's criminal history, Emma's hospitalization, the pattern of neglect I'd documented. But what struck me most was the final paragraph. The children's welfare concerns were initially reported by a family member who wishes to remain anonymous. Both children are now in a stable placement and receiving appropriate care. What about the harassment charges against her? She'll face those separately. The social media campaign, the stalking, the false accusations, it all backfired spectacularly when the judge saw the evidence. I stared at the article, processing the fact that this nightmare was actually ending. What happens now? Now you get to be 17 again. Go to prom, worry about college applications, be a normal teenager. Jennifer's expression softened. You did something incredibly difficult, and you saved those kids from a situation that was escalating toward real danger. That evening, I found Mom sitting at the kitchen table with her laptop, David beside her. They both looked up when I entered, and for the first time in weeks, Mom's face wasn't etched with disappointment. We saw the news, David said quietly. About the drug charges. I'm sorry I didn't believe you, Mom added, her voice thick with emotion. I thought I was protecting our family, but you were protecting those children. Is David going to lose his job? I asked. The company called today. They're dropping the investigation now that the criminal charges have been filed. Apparently, they're satisfied that we acted appropriately once we understood the full situation. Mom reached across the table and took my hand. I owe you an apology. You were the only adult in that situation, even though you're still a child yourself. The next Monday, I walked into school to find Maya waiting by my locker. So, I read the article, she said, looking embarrassed. I'm sorry I backed away when things got weird. I should have trusted that you knew what you were doing. I barely knew what I was doing, I admitted. I just knew I couldn't watch those kids suffer anymore. Over the next few weeks, life slowly returned to something resembling normal. My chemistry grade recovered thanks to extra credit work. The grocery store manager, after learning the full story from the news coverage, offered me additional hours to rebuild my college savings. I even got invited to join the debate team again. But the best news came 2 months later, when Jennifer called with an update. Tyler and Emma's adoption was finalized yesterday, she said. Their new parents sent a message asking if you'd like to visit sometime. Tyler apparently talks about his aunt, who used to take care of him, and Emma draws pictures of someone she calls the nice girl who made me feel better when I was sick. I close my eyes, feeling something tight in my chest finally release. Yes, I whispered. I'd like that very much. Sometimes doing the right thing costs everything. But sometimes, if you're incredibly lucky, it saves everyone who matters most.